Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the hybrid convention of the WFTGA 2022 from Madrid. My name is Sebastian, I'm the vice president, I'm a little bit the moderator for today, or I'm allowed to welcome you. And you know, hybrid, the WFTGA convention is always everybody is here, we are in the same mood, we are dancing, we are singing, and we are so sorry that you are not here, that only 40 people had the chance to come to Madrid. So what we want to do is we want to give you really a feeling that you are here, that you are in Madrid, that it's an interactive conference, and that's why we are starting here outside in the beautiful square. And I would say we are now flying into our convention hotel, and there we meet the others. Okay, and ladies and gentlemen, here we are now in our convention hotel. I'm standing in the lobby in front of our venue, and you know, typical for convention is that we meet all the bidders, and we have 4 amazing bidders. They are all presenting here their things and their gifts and try to convince the delegates. So here we have the first. Where are you from?
Sabah, Malaysia.
Yeah, these are our Malaysian friends. And oh, you have beautiful, lovely animals here. What's that?
This is an orangutan.
This is a proboscis monkey, our icon.
Oh, that's nice. What else do you have for our delegates? How do you convince them that they should vote for Malaysia?
You are going wild in Borneo.
Did you hear that? You are going wild in Borneo. I think that's enough for me. That's enough of adventure of the wilderness in Malaysia. Oh, we're coming to the next one here. My dear guests in the World Wide Web, here we have the group from
Turkey.
Oh, my Turkish friends. Oh, and I have to see that. I'm a fan of sweet things, so that's exactly what we want. We delegates, we want sweet things. Am I allowed to taste it?
Yes, of course.
We keep some baklavas for Wednesday. Some baklavas we keep for Wednesday.
I really like that. So why should the delegates vote for Turkey?
We explain everything in this QR code. If they check the WFTGA2024.org, they see all the details here. We made some itineraries only for guides.
So WFTGA2024.org is the website.
Everything is
everything is there. They try everything. Yes? Yeah, then we can leave Turkey. And what do you think? Where are we now flying? To the east, to the north, to the south? Oh, I think we are flying to the south. We are coming to
Italy.
Sicily.
Yes, Syracuse.
So, and where is that part of Italy?
In the southeastern corner of Sicily. So you'll find a beautiful and fantastic city of Syracuse. Welcome to this marvelous city.
So this is a small island, yes? Or the biggest island? Or, oh, sorry, it's the biggest, largest island. Oh, yeah. How do you convince the delegates? Why should they vote for Sicily?
Because of its beauty. I mean, that's because it's tasty.
Another sweet things. I love it. This is why we delegates are coming to the convention, because everywhere we get the sweet things. Yeah, we're missing a little bit the delegates from Sweden, from Germany, from Austria, because normally they bring us all this chocolate from these areas, and all the other delegates we are missing. So not every country is here. Yesterday we had the delegates meeting with around 20 delegates inside and around 30 in the World Wide Web, but we have to go back. So sweet things from Sicily.
Turkeys, our delicacies, and this is tortilla.
And don't forget the weather. I mean,
The south weather. But I can tell you also in Spain today we have amazing weather. Thank you, Italy. And now we are flying over the big oceans. Oh, far away. A little bit where we have started in the morning. Yeah, we are coming here to, where's my gimbal? My gimbal doesn't follow me any longer. Yeah, we have the long flight for the gimbal is a little bit too difficult. Now we are coming to the technology country we are coming to.
Yes, we are Fukuoka, Japan.
Ooh, Japan.
Yes, Japan.
Oh, and I see you are the ones with the computer here, typical Japan. You are the technology country. So what will we see in Japan?
Well, of course, tradition, cuisine, and most importantly, ultra-modern infrastructure.
Ultra-modern infrastructure, but we also want to see the old stuff. Do you also have old stuff?
Yes, we got all traditional aspects of Japan stem from
You see,
temples.
all the bigger countries, they will show you really everything. The old, the new, the best, the sweet things, the chocolate, the cookies, the baklava, everything. And when you really want to know, thanks the bidders. Yeah, I think we will meet you later in our coffee break. And you know, the bidders, they are a little bit nervous today because right after the lunch today, they have their big presentation. Yeah, so they have the bidding presentation. It's starting 3:15 to 4:15 tonight, this afternoon, Madrid time. And you all have the chance to watch this live on our website, convention.wftga.org. And you see, during I speak here, I walked into the room where all our amazing tourist guides from all over the world are sitting. They waving their hands. They not are allowed to speak and they are not allowed to make noise. Yes, now they are getting a little bit louder. Yeah, we are a convention here. That's good. And yeah, you know, I have to hand over to the one and only to our president, who is right in front of all these delegates, of all this tourist guide. This is Alushka Ritchie, our president. Welcome speech.
So thank you, Sebastian, for that lovely introduction to our 19th convention, hybrid convention here with the hub in Madrid, Spain. I'd like to start off with a formal welcome before we move on to our array of speakers for today. So firstly, let me say welcome to all the tourist guides, our WFTGA members, and our tourism colleagues who are joining us in person and virtually. We have 84 countries registered to attend today's educational day. How amazing is that? Really bringing the world together, bringing our tourist guide sector together. When we left our 18th convention in Tbilisi, we did not foresee that there would be 3 years before we would be seeing each other again. It's been a tough 3 years as a sector for tourist guides. And as we come into 2022, the word recovery has resonated with all of us. And within the tourist guide sector, we really need to continue our collaborations and working together as tourist guides, our associations, our destinations, and drive our sector forward into the recovery year. It's a slightly unconventional version of our convention that we are experiencing this week. We're trying to make it as accessible as possible to many of our colleagues across the globe. We are an international organization. We have tourist guides across the globe, and I know that some of them are awake in the middle of the night and some it's early morning. So thank you for sacrificing your time and joining us. A reminder for our professional day to register, we have 10 presenters lined up on Thursday as well. And now moving on to introductions for today's presenters. We are starting off with tourist guide Christo, previously Prison Warden to Nelson Mandela. We then move on to Tara Todros-Whitehall, who is an experienced storyteller, and she will be sharing her experiences with us. And lastly, we have Marco Valente, archaeologist. Feel free to visit our Facebook page for more information on these speakers. And then, of course, to our technical team, thank you for today. I know you've also got your challenges, so we appreciate that as well. And for questions for the guest presenters, please use the Q&A function on Zoom. And ladies and gentlemen, lastly, from our side as president, as the executive board, we want to say thank you for the support from the tourist guides and our members for the last 3 years. It has not been an easy journey, but us at the World Federation of Tourist Guide Association, we genuinely appreciate the contributions from our members, and we look forward to what the future may hold for you as our members, as our member associations, and for us as tourist guides. So thank you. Enjoy this unconventional convention, the 19th convention, and we hope that we'll all meet again in 2024 at whomever will be the host. Thank you.
Hi there. Can I just test, Ilushka, can you see the slide or not?
I can see you, Christo. Can we see your slide? Not yet.
Please start screen sharing again.
Okay, I'm going to have to go out. Just stand by.
Okay, so we have Christo Brunt, assisted by Andrew Russell, his business manager. So this is Andrew, and has Christo joined us?
Yes.
Just hang on. I'm going to have to close. I'm just going to have to close this quickly and then reopen it. So just stand by for me. Because I've become a presenter, I'm not sure now how I'm going to share my screen, because it's just because it's okay. I'm not sure how to do this now. All right, here we go. I'm going to try again now. Just stand by.
That looks good.
The slide is there. There's it. Perfect.
Okay, but I just want to see how I can go to start slideshow. Just stand by for me.
Andrew, top left. The little square with the little triangle in it, in the red bar. To the right.
Yeah, I can't remove the top black. Just hang on a second.
Push the button that has to the right. Just go to the red bar.
Yeah, I'm on the red bar. Yeah, look, I am on the red bar, but I can't.
Andrew, can you go down? Go down to the button, go down to the button to the right.
Yeah.
To the right. And you see there is a slider, and the next to this, yes, and that you click. Perfect.
This one here.
Yes. Click. Here we go.
Okay.
That's
Cool.
it.
All right. So, can you see that there, Christo? Is that all right?
Yes, perfect, perfect.
Okay, brilliant. All right. Well, thank you guys for inviting us to share this time with you. And we're going to take you on a journey this morning, a journey of two men, Christo Brunt and Nelson Mandela. And I'm going to start with this quote. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate. And if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than the opposite. And so to start our journey today, Christo, can you just set the scene for our friends, what life was like for you as a young boy growing up on a farm?
For me, as a young boy growing up at a farm, I was the only white child on the farm playing with African children. But one day I was disrespectful to the elder African man where my father gave me hiding and said to me, the person can be black, but a human being like us. And my father was just a foreman on the farm. So that's the way I grew up on the farm.
And many years earlier, there was another young boy called Nelson Mandela who spent his early years in the small Eastern Cape village of Kunu. And this is what he wrote. It was in that village of Kunu that I spent the happiest years of my boyhood, and whence I traced my earliest memories. Kunu was situated in a narrow grassy valley, crisscrossed by clear streams and overlooked by green hills. There were no roads, only paths through the grass, worn away by barefoot boys and women. From an early age, I spent most of my free time in the veld, playing and fighting with the other boys. From these days, I take my love of the veld, of open spaces. And so these two young boys both grew up in rural areas where there were no signs of apartheid. They lived a free life. They were surrounded by friends and family, and they learned to respect adults. But this was all going to change at the age of 12, when Christo's family were forced to leave the farm and move to the city. And then at the end of his school years, Christo decided to join the military, the prison service, rather than join the national service and serve 2 years. And so, Christo, can you now explain to our friends, why did you decide to become a prison guard at the age of 18 when you finished school?
At the age of 18, when I finished school, I was looking for a job. But a year before I left school, one of my friends was called up for military service. That was compulsory for all white males to join the military. But that day when I see my friend off on Cape Town station, he said to me, not really want to join the military. He don't want to fight black people in the townships. That year, the military operated in our townships. He don't want to fight black people in the borders. He want to become a medical doctor. But what happened 6 months after his training, was sent to the borders, and he was killed by so-called terrorists. And that day when I sat in the school, in the church, the priest said what hero this gentleman was for our country. How this gentleman protect our country against the black enemy. For me, sitting in the church, my friend was not a hero. The blacks was not my enemy. And I made a decision I will look for something alternative, not to join the military. That year before I left school, 3 months before I left school, a gentleman visited our school and looking for prison guards, people who can guard prisoners. I was not interested till he mentioned exemption from military service. Then I think I will have a conversation with this guy. After our conversation, I said to him, I don't want to become a prison guard. I want to become an electrician. He said, that's a right opportunity to take. You become a prison guard. After your training, you apply to work in a prison workshops, become an electrician. You can help prisoners become electricians. So I signed up and I was sent for my training.
Christo, daar's net 'n vraag van die vrou. Sy sê jy moet stadiger praat. Okay.
Okay, we'll speak slower.
Want daar's mense van oral die wêreld. Okay.
Okay.
All right, and so then Christo became a prison guard. At the age of 18, he was sent to work on Robben Island, which is located just off the coast on the southern tip of Africa. And behind you can see the famous Table Mountain. Here is a photograph of Christo taken in front of the ferry that was used to take people to and from the island. And this is what met Christo when he arrived on Robben Island as an 18-year-old warder. So Christo, can you now share what happened that first morning when you reported for duty?
That first morning when we report for duty, we was 21 youngsters between the age of 18 and 20 arrived on the island. The head of the prison welcomed us. He told us we're going to meet the biggest criminals in the history of South Africa. He said to us, these guys is got life sentences. Some of them have double life sentences. We're here to break the spirit of these guys. These guys must do hard labor on the island. We must break them in. We're not allowed to communicate with them. We're here to break these prisoners, beat them, and they must understand to do hard labor. That was my first introduction to that morning. After that, they sent me to the isolation section. That morning when I walked to the isolation section, I walk in fears. I know people in isolation as people who can't behave themselves, so which was totally isolated away from other prisoners. So when I opened that first cell door that morning, I see elderly African man stand up from the floor. He slept on 2 mats, 3 blankets, and he treated me with respect and said, "Good morning, sir." I was shocked to see such an old man in prison and treat me with that respect. I look at him, I don't see any tattoos on his face. I can't believe that can be a gangster. And it was terribly cold that morning where he slept on that floor when he stand up, and I feel immediately sorry for this guy. Then I walk to the second cell. I read this guy called life plus 15 years. I think that can be a real criminal. But when I open that cell, I see a more elderly person treat me with respect. So I just walk onto another cell, open the outside door, and I just read the names of these guys: Andrew Mlangeni, Walter Sisulu, Nelson Mandela. I read all these names. I never heard these names before in my life. That was my first introduction that morning to open that isolation section.
And then what happened, Christo was rotated on the island and he ended up working in this office called the census office. Christo, can you now share what happened when you reported for duty at the census office?
That morning when I report for duty at that office, that was after 3 months working on the island at different places. My superior welcomed me and he said to me, "Brand, just help the guys unpack these apple boxes, which was piled up at the back of the office. There's some cards in and these cards must be counted." So I didn't realize what it is. So I throw out the box on the table, start counting these cards. Then I see it is birthday cards. And that was for one prisoner, Nelson Mandela. That year, 1978, was his 60th birthday. So we start counting these cards. After counting these cards for more than a week, we found out there was 55,000 cards plus a few odd cards. That was massive. Then a sergeant said to us, we must unpack the cards again. He wanted the cards to be separated. Cards from America, Germany, Spain, Italy. You want to see the totals which come from different countries. So that takes us also a week and a half to sort that cards out. Then I realized after that, there was one box marked South Africa. There was only 12 cards in that box. So I asked the sergeant, why 12 in South Africa? Don't South Africans not know Nelson Mandela? His answer to me was, he said, "Brand, if anybody should have dared to send a card for Nelson Mandela and the police identified that person should have immediately arrested, 90 days solitary confinement, electrical shock, tortured, or been killed." People was afraid to correspond with these prisoners. Out of these massive of cards, Mandela received 6 cards from his direct family. All the other cards was destroyed and burnt. And that was my first introduction, heard the name Nelson Mandela.
And then Christo's next job was to handle visits to the island. And on one occasion, he was told that Winnie Mandela was on her way to Robben Island to visit her husband. Christo, can you now tell us what happened when you went to tell Mandela about his visit? And what happened when the two of you walked out of prison down to the visitors center?
That morning, when I informed Mandela about his visit, he immediately asked me for a few minutes that he can prepare him for the visit and get dressed in his prison uniform, which he used for Sunday's inspection. After that, he reported to me he's ready for his visit. I put him on leg irons. I lift up the chains for him, and I could have walked him out of prison. That morning, when I walked him out of prison after a distance away from the prison, he looked back. He asked me, "Mr. Brandt, where are you come from? You put the leg iron smooth around my ankles. You lift up the chains for me, and you treat me with respect." I look at him. I said, "Mandela, I grew up on a farm, and my father said I must respect elderly people." He said, "That's good news, Mr. Brandt. You can help me, give me advice in my prison garden." In a prison courtyard at the back, Mandela has a small piece of land where he plants some chilies, tomatoes, onions. That was to spice up the bad food. So I didn't comment on that. We walked on. A while later, he looked back again. He asked me, "Mr. Brandt, is your parents still alive?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Send them my greetings." That was something strange that a prisoner tell me to send greetings to my parents. I didn't comment on that. We walked on. And just before we get to the visiting center, he looked back again. He asked me, "Mr. Brandt, are you studying?" I said, "No." He said, "You must make use of the time to study on this island. Through studies, you can get promotion. You can become the head of the prison, and you can understand us as prisoners better." So I didn't comment on that. I just take him to the single cell at the visiting center and lock him up there while we wait for more prisoners and the visitors.
And then Christo goes to fetch the ladies from the boat. And one of them is Winnie Mandela. And he notices that she takes a raincoat off And then she has a beautiful blanket around her body. She takes the blanket off and he sees that she's got a small backpack on her back. But when she takes the backpack off, he realizes she has brought a baby to Robben Island, which was highly illegal, and he should have stopped the visit straight away. But instead, he put her in the visitor's booth, in the visitor's room, and he carried on with the visit. Christo, can you just briefly now share what happened at the end of that visit between Winnie Mandela, you, and Nelson Mandela?
At the end of the visit, Mandela requested, after the window closed, he requested for me I must pass a message to his wife, which I said, you just have a visit. And that moment, my superior walked in and he asked me what's the problem, and I explained what Mandela requested. He said to me, Brandt, fetch his wife back, let he can tell him himself. That moment, when I walked to the waiting room, I see Winnie Mandela have the infant in her arms. I look at the situation, I walked to and I said, ma'am, can't I hold the baby? I never held the African child. So she pushed it in my arms. She tried to grab her hand back. She tried to bribe me with some money. I said, ma'am, I don't want your money. I will just keep the baby for you while you go back into the visiting booth. But when she's in the visiting booth, I locked her in. I sneaked to the side of Mandela. And then after that, Mandela see me in a passage, my superior closed the window, and Mandela came straight to me. And that moment when he came to me, take the baby out of my arms, kiss the baby twice, there were tears in his eyes. That year's prisoners was not allowed to see children. So that moment, Winnie Mandela knocked on the door on the other side, she's locked in. I quickly take the baby back from him, go to her side, apologize, and gave her the infant back. She was still begging me to show him the child, which my answer was no. But when she get to the mainland, the media tried to get a glimpse of her, but the police was also waiting for her. She was under banning orders and house arrest. But she managed to tell the media she smuggled this baby to Robben Island, but could have not shown her husband on a distance. On the island, Mandela just thanked me what I've done. He didn't share it with his comrades. If that message should have leaked out, he should have lost his studies, visit, and small privileges. I should have been charged, smuggled with a terrorist, and the minimum sentence they promised us that year was 5 years. That secret was between me and Mandela for nearly 20 years, till he became the president of our country.
And so remarkably, here is a note that Winnie wrote in a book which she gave to Christo many years later. My dearest Brunt, the wonderful memories we share are priceless. I remember how you refused to accept a gift from me because you were and still are so principled. Thanks for all the wonderful things you did for Madiba in prison. Only God can thank you. You are amazing, Winnie Mandela. And now our journey moves forward to 1982, when Christo wanted to get married, but there were no married quarters on Robben Island, and so he was transferred to Pollsmoor Prison, which is on the mainland in Cape Town. And at exactly the same time, Mandela and 3 others were transferred, and they became the Mandela Group, and Christo was in charge of them for the next 6 years. This is where he looked after them and was in contact with them on a daily basis. On the top of the prison was a roof where Christo allowed Nelson Mandela to build a garden. And this is where Christo used to play tennis with the prisoners as well. So much happened during those 6 years. But I'm going to ask Christo to share one story of one thing that happened on a particular Christmas day. Christo, can you share that story with our friends?
On Christmas Day, like all the other days, we normally lock the prisoners between 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock for lunchtime, that our guards can rotate for lunch. And that day when I came back from my lunch, that day when I opened the cell at 2 o'clock, Mandela walked to me and he asked me, Mr. Brandt, it's Christmas today. All over the world, people celebrate this day. But we in prison could have not get any visits over the whole December. And we also want to celebrate it. Can we celebrate it with you as guards? I look at him, I said, Mandela, how you want to do that? He said, Mr. Brandt, if we can sit around the table and drink a coffee, that will be a celebration. So I spoke to the other guards because that place was isolated. Our superiors could have not get in there. So we sit around the table and drink a coffee with the prisoners, eat some fruit cake, dried fruit, some chocolate sweets, everything. But after that ceremony was nearly lockup time. And Mandela was busy packing up the table. And I called him one side. And I said to him, Mandela, you know, it's the first time in my life I sat with a prisoner around the table, enjoying a Christmas meal like this. Everything was fine. but your fruitcake was very bad. He looked at me, he said, Mr. Brandt, you forget something. You was the one who bought us the fruitcake. Immediately I said to Mandela, you're right, but you must remember this fruitcake in this shopping malls is baked in bulk. It's mostly made also for Muslim people. There's no liqueurs and brandies in. But my wife baked fruitcake in October, November, and she dosed it properly with these brandies. I'll bring you a proper piece of fruitcake the next day. The next day, I take him a piece of fruitcake. So I forget about the fruitcake. A year later, Mandela called me that November to his cell. He handed an application to me, which I must still take to the head of the prison for approval. And on that application was 500-gram fruitcake, 500-gram chocolates, 500 grams of dried fruits. When he handed it to me, he said to me, Mr. Brandt, can you make sure the fruitcake is from your wife? I look at him. I said, Mandela, that will be very difficult, but I will see what I can do. So I convinced my wife to bake some fruitcake for other prison guards. I never tell her for prisoners. So she baked. I gave for the prisoners the fruitcake for Mandela, deduct the money from their property, paid my wife. She was happy. So it carried on for year after year. But when Mandela was released from prison, he phoned my wife on that October, and he thanked her for the fruitcake over the years, and she didn't know what he was talking about till he started explaining the fruitcake he received from her. Then he placed his order for fruitcake again. So my wife was still baking fruitcake for Mandela then till he passed. And that was another thing which brings us closer together.
Okay, just a remarkable story between these two men. So our journey carries on. In fact, in a few days' time, we will be celebrating on the 11th of February, the release of Nelson Mandela from Victor Verster prison after 27 years in prison. He was taken to the City Hall in Cape Town, where he made his first speech as a free man. And then on the 10th of May, 1994, he was inaugurated as our first democratically elected president in South Africa. And in the ensuing years, Christo was in contact with Nelson Mandela on many different occasions. He was a guest at his 80th birthday, which became his wedding, his 85th birthday, and he was in regular contact with Nelson Mandela. But we're now just going to talk about one thing that happened, and that is what the power of education and the story that Christo is going to share with you. This is what Mandela said: education is the great engine of personal development. It is through education that the daughter of a peasant can become a doctor, that the son of a mine worker can become the head of the mine, that a child of farm workers can become the president of a great nation. It is what we make out of what we have, not what we are given, that separates one person from another. And so, Christo, I want you to now share with our friends something about the relationship that existed between Nelson Mandela and your son, starting off from when he was a little baby.
In 1985, Mandela was put in isolation, totally alone in a basement of the maximum security prison. That's a time when the negotiations, we start talking to government. So I get a message one evening from the minister's office to take urgent to Mandela. That evening, my wife was not at home. I was already an officer. So it was decided to take my baby infant with me to Mandela's cell. He was so excited when he see my small boy that he wanted to hold him, but my son didn't want to go to him till he started feeding him some sweets. After that, my son became a regular visitor to Mandela. When Mandela was released from prison, he was phoning at home and he spoke to my son and he talked about education. And he told my son he must study hard to make his parents proud of him. So it happened, carry on like that. In 94, I started work in Parliament. And when I work in Parliament, Mandela called me one morning to his office. And that morning, he gave me a letter. He was busy drafting a letter, and he handed over the letter to me. And the letter was also saying, congratulations on your 16th birthday, as you can read there. So I gave my son this letter. My son was very proud to receive a letter from the president. 96, the Constitution was adopted. I started work on Robben Island. And while I work on Robben Island, I get one morning a phone call, urgent, the president wants to see you. That morning, when I get to the president's office, he said to me, Brandt, I spoke to your son now a week ago on the phone, and he said to me, he's finishing school this year. And because he's finishing school, I didn't want to tell him, I want to give your son a scholarship. What do you want to study? I look at him, I said, President Mandela, when we discussed this issue, He said to me, you want to become a civil engineer. He said, don't tell your son anything. He's my responsibility. I will get him a scholarship. 2 weeks passed. The Sunday night, President Mandela phoned me at home. And he said to me, Brandt, I've got a scholarship for your son, but it's in New York. And he can start next year, October. That was about 10, 12 months later. He can start in the university. Everything will be paid in full and my comrades will look after him. You don't have to worry at all. So I was very excited. When I tell my son about a scholarship, he was not very happy. He said he wanted to take a gap year. He first wanted to become a commercial diver, and then he decided to study further. He don't want to study at all abroad. So he was very upset. So the next morning, I phoned the president and explained him. And then he's quiet on the phone on that side for a few minutes. Then he come back to me and he said, Brandt, can you bring the boy to my house? I want to speak man on man with him. That morning later, that afternoon, 2 o'clock, I take my son to the president's house. He was at home and they have a conversation in private. And then he called me and he said to me, Brandt, a parent must never push a child in a direction. A child must decide for himself what he want to do in life. So your son want to become a commercial diver. I will support him. I will back him up. I will pay for his course. So what happened? Mandela paid for my son's scholarship. Everything was paid in full. And then my son became a commercial diver and he started work also on Robben Island. While he worked there, one morning, Mandela called me in and he asked me if my son enjoyed the job. I said, yes, he would really love the job. But in 2005, my son came late from work. That evening, he was in a car accident and he passed. When he passed, the next morning early, the president was the first person who phoned me. And he said to me, Mr. Brandt, a parent must never lose a child. He started explaining to me how he felt when he was a prisoner on Robben Island, when he lost his eldest son, Tembekile himself. And they have a long conversation on the phone to me. And then after that, he said to me, Mr. Brandt, I would love to attend your son's funeral, but I'm not in a country. I'm only back in 2 weeks' time. I said, President Mandela, I really understand you're the president of our country. You're busy, but we're going to bury my son within 2 to 3 working days. So my son was buried. And 2 weeks after that, the president called me in again. He was back in a country. He wanted me to see my wife and my other son. He wanted to see the whole family. And they have a long conversation about us, how important is children in the life of parents. And after that, he started pushing me and pressurizing me. I must write a book. And I was not interested in that. So I start with my book process.
And then, unfortunately, just when the book was ready to be released, Nelson Mandela passed away on this day. And so the book was put on hold until the following year. Christo was invited as a friend, as a guest, of the Mandela family to attend the funeral in Kunu on the 14th of December, 2013. And how appropriate was it that of all the places in South Africa that Mandela could choose to be buried, he chose that small Eastern Cape village where he had spent the happiest years of his life. And that is where he chose as his final resting place. And so, Christo, as we get towards the end of our chat now to our friends all over the world, can you maybe just share with us just a couple of your thoughts on that day when you attended the funeral of your friend?
That morning when I sit at the funeral in Kunu, I sit behind Zinzi Mandela. And I said to myself, I must touch the coffin to say goodbye to my friend. When the coffin passed, it was parked in front of the marquise. I look at the coffin, I said to myself, for 27.5 years, this old man was in prison. For 14 years, he slept on 2 mats, 3 blankets, treated like a dog. 14 years, he worked in a limestone where he break lime rock, nearly lost his eyesight. After that, he worked on the rocks, taking sea kelp out of the sea, where he slipped on the rocks, broke his ankle and fractured his knee, and so on. But he walked out of prison with reconciliation in his heart. Then I think back when my prisoner became the president. I was very excited to become president. But one morning, and also get a job in his office, so I work in his office. But one morning I tell him, I said, President Mandela, when you came this morning to your office, you still look like a prisoner for me. He said, why you say that, Mr. Brandt? I said, when you march in here, you come with security. The same as Robben Island when the guards was around you. When you was released, you walked out a few meters as a free man, and then you got security after that. Now you're the president, you have more security around you. You still feel like a prisoner for me. He's quiet, he looked at me, he said, Brandt, you're right. But today this prisoner can tell the police in what direction to walk. He let me believe he's feeling a free man. Then I think back when he invited me to different functions, but there was one day he invited me to meet him at home. There was a lot of kids playing around. After a while, he called the kids together and explained to me that is his grandchildren. And later I asked him, President Mandela, how many grandchildren do you have? The old man became quiet, looked around, and he said to me, Brandt, I stopped counting. There's grand and grandchildren. So I was so happy he could have retired, enjoy life with children. That's what he missed the most while he was a prisoner.
Okay, Christo, we're going to move on now because I want to now move on to what happened recently. Christo was working back at Robben Island, and in 2018, he took the decision to retire from Robben Island in order to share the story with the world. And one of the first things he did was to become an official Western Cape tour guide. And so in July 2018, Christo then became a guide and was able to offer all sorts of different ways for guests to meet him and to hear something about this remarkable story. So there are all sorts of different ways that visitors to Cape Town can meet Christo. Some people like to have a dinner with him. He talks at small groups, large groups, and different events and conferences. This is one other way that people can meet him is to do a helicopter flight over Robben Island. But one of the most popular ways of meeting Christo is to go on a private tour, where Christo will accompany a small group of tourists on a private tour of Robben Island, where they can get to know Christo and they can hear the story. And this is another way where people can charter a boat, a private yacht, and go for a trip around the island. Another popular way which Christo meets guests is to do a half-day tour in Cape Town, which starts at the waterfront, goes to Pollsmoor Prison, goes past Mandela's house where he lived, and then ends up in the City Hall in Cape Town, where there's now a statue to Mandela and where he made his first speech as a free man. And obviously during lockdown, Christo and I were really fortunate to be able to carry on sharing his story with people around the world. So we was then able to do this kind of similar talk with interested groups, school groups, university groups, all around the world. And so as we finish our conversation, I just want to share with you this photo of the Long Walk to Freedom, which was given to Christo by Nelson Mandela. And these two quotes, which come from the book. One of the warders, a very pleasant young man named Warrant Officer Brandt, actually took me to his family's flat and introduced me to his wife and children. From then on, I sent his children Christmas cards every year. And then secondly, men like Warrant Officer Brandt reinforced my belief in the essential humanity, even of those who had kept me behind bars for the previous 27.5 years, Nelson Mandela. And so Christo and I want to say to all of you on the call this morning, thank you for joining us, wherever you are all over the world. And this is a journey that Christo has walked with Nelson Mandela, but we want to say good luck to each and every one of you on your own journey. And to leave you with our favorite quote from Nelson Mandela: what counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we lead. Nelson Mandela, 1918 to 2013. And so if you would like to be in contact with us, there are Christo's details. We are on social media. And again, we just want to thank you for joining us in your conference. And I did see earlier that there were people from countries all over the world. So we want to just finally send you greetings from Cape Town and to say to all of you, we look forward to meeting you and hopefully introducing you to Christo one day. So Alushka, I'm going to pass back to you. I'm not sure if there's time for questions, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew and Christo. We have a couple of questions. And again, for people who are watching, you're welcome to use the question and answer button for questions. And if there are any in the audience, you're welcome to raise your hands. So Christo, for us as tourist guides, you're a very good example of how to use your experience and transfer that into tours as a tourist guide. How did you find that transition from your career as a prison warden to that of storyteller and tourist guide?
For me, it's a story to talk about Mandela's legacy, what Mandela have gone through, what he was fighting for, and the freedom to show the people showcase to people where Mandela was incarcerated, tell them how he fight the battle to walk out as a free man and change our country and to reconcile people in the world. So that is mostly my story, to bring people together, that there can be understandings between people, black and white, all over the world.
Well, that kind of links to the next question, which is it's always challenging for us as tourist guides to talk about sensitive subjects and sensitive subject matter. How did you manage this? Because obviously you're dealing with tourists with multiple opinions, with different interpretations of the reality. So how did you deal with this kind of situation as a tourist guide on this sensitive subject?
You know, a lot of people who visit the island, or which I take on tours, could have not believed that a black man and a white man can become friends. But, you know, then I explained to him where we come from. We come from the rural areas together, like Mandela said. But we land in a city of discrimination, of apartheid. We land on Robben Island, me as a guard, and here as a prisoner, we were supposed to hate each other. But on the island, we found a link between each other. We become friends without the authorities know about it. And what happened after that in the release, in the freedom of him, so on. So we go through the whole process.
Alushka, if I can just add there, I think what comes across in Christo's story, you know, he's just a genuine human being and he tells his story from the heart. And I think that's what's so important for guides, you know, not to try and fudge over something. You know, when people ask Christo to tell them about apartheid, he tells them about apartheid. You know, it was a dreadful time in South Africa's history. But it's not something that we shy away from. It's something we talk about. We had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission where people could come forward and apply for amnesty. And I think the beauty of Christo, you know, is he's just a genuine person. And, you know, you've been on umpteen tours and you've guided so many tours. People can see through you if you're pulling a smoke screen in front of them. They want to hear the story. They don't want you to hide facts. They want you to tell it as it is. And I think that's the beauty of this journey between Christo and Mandela.
That's a very good point. As tourist guides, we can't hide things from tourists. They see right through us. We have to be transparent. And we've also had a question, Andrew. How did you meet Christo and how have you become part of this journey?
So I actually organize incoming school tours from overseas. And I had a group from Canada in 2015 on a rugby tour and they met Christo on Robben Island. And they came back 2 years later and they said, could they please meet this guy who they'd met on Robben Island? And then I obviously knew who Christo was, but I started meeting with Christo and his wife Estelle in 2017. And then when he decided to make this decision, because he was employed at Robben Island, he'd been working there for 20 years, I think, you know, running the shop, doing all sorts of things, but he was frustrated because he wanted to share his story with people. And eventually they asked me if I would help them, you know, become his business manager and help him get his name and share his story. So I basically am his manager. I handle all the bookings and everything. And Christo can just share his story with as many people because, you know, it's a story that people need to hear.
Yeah. And Andrew, Christo, actually, on a lighter note, what is one of your fondest and most memorable memories since you've kind of entered the tourism side of things, shall we say, when you are busy sharing experiences with everybody? Have you experienced something that really dealing with tourists that made you think, oh, I'm actually doing this for the right reasons? And what's your most memorable memory?
Like the people found my stories very interested. They ask me a lot of questions. They want to know more about Mandela. They know more about the background of the person. They want to know the emotional points of Mandela, where he become emotional when he touched his grandchild. Another time when he see my son And when you have his first contact visit, that emotion you have. And was he also a person get angry? And they ask me all these funny questions, and even children ask me all these questions. And what is me sometimes very nice, when people tour through South Africa, they've done Robben Island, they've done all these museums, and then a tour guide said to them, they've got a surprise for them on their farewell dinner. And they brought me in and they introduced me, and I do a presentation to them, and I do a talk with them. And I show them a short video of 8 minutes with my life with Mandela, where me and Mandela sit and talk and making jokes. And people found that very interesting. Some of them, they say to me then, that was a highlight of the whole tour. It comes back to us. And then I feel very good that they really enjoyed it and understand it.
Nice. So you've inadvertently become an international speaker, sharing your story across the globe. So obviously you're speaking to an international audience. So we want to know, which country, city has been your favorite to visit so far on your journey as a
Oh, I visit a lot of countries and cities, but the place which was close to my heart, which I really love, that was Wilmington in America, which I visited, that small town. I really fall in love with that small town. I visited through North Carolina, Charlotte, Chapel, Wilmington, Virginia, Florida, and I was also in Kansas, Wichita, and I was in Dallas, Texas out, and I speak in London at different schools in the UK. I was in the Netherlands, but that Wilmington, that small part of the world was really beautiful for me.
Your favorite. Great. I think that's it with questions. Sarah, any more questions? Anything from the floor? Good. Well, thank you, gentlemen. It was lovely having you. Thank you very much for being part of our day today and sharing your experience as a new, well, your experiences now merged into being a tourist guide with all of us all over the globe. So we wish you all the best, and thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thanks, Alushka, and
Thank
good
you.
luck to all of you
Okay.
for the rest of the conference. I hope it goes well.
And I hope to see you back in South Africa soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys.
Okay, Andrew.
Okay, we can leave.
Thanks, guys. So, Sebastian, could we bring up Tara's presentation, our next speaker? I think we do, yes. So we actually have some copies of Christo Brand's book with us here in Madrid, which we have available, and one of them are actually on raffle, selling on the raffle, and others are for sale. So if anyone is interested, you can see Sonia. So Sebastian, just let me know when we are in with our next speaker. Is Tara on the screen?
I'm here.
Welcome, Tara. So Tara is our next speaker, also linking slightly to the storytelling side of things. And Tara is a well-known visual storyteller, and she's joining us to share her vast experience. So welcome, Tara. We have in person in Madrid, and we are joined virtually by 84 countries.
Amazing. I'm honored to be here and be talking to you guys today.
Great. So I'll hand over to you, and then we'll take some questions at the end.
Okay. So I'll just share my screen and then I'll introduce myself. Okay. Let's see. I have a couple of videos. If the video doesn't play, just I can't really see while I'm doing the talk. So if anyone can't hear the video, please let me know. My talk today is called Tourism and Visuals. Doing it ethically is doing it well. So I just want to give you a little background on myself, and then I'm going to give you the outline, and I'm excited to go through this with you today. So my name is Tara Todros-Whitehall. I'm a visual storyteller and communications agency founder. I now have, this is my second communications agency that I have. As a background, I am also a working photojournalist. I've had my photos featured on more than 20 of the front pages in the New York Times, which is quite an honor for me, and I love working for them. And I also founded my first creative agency and ran that for 6 years, using my background as a journalist, as a storyteller. I wanted to help people who had the idea of social impact first and foremost in their organizations, to help them tell their stories better. So we did everything from photo, video, UX design, animation, data visualization, presentations, anything that kind of you can think of that can be a visual story falls into this, and that we had worked on. And now in my second creative agency, I also do all the things that I did before, but I wanted to add something to it because I felt like what was missing was helping people who are there in the communities become better visual storytellers every day. And I felt like that was something that I hadn't given back, and that because I'm only me and there's only so much I can do, I want the people who really know the stories inside and out. And for a lot of you, that is where you're going in your communities and places that you know very well, to be able to help you do visual storytelling better, so you can tell the stories that you're seeing even better. I always like to start with a quote. So this is a quote from an author, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and it says, "Stories have been used to dispossess and malign, but stories can also be used to empower and to humanize. Stories can break the dignity of people, but stories can also repair that broken dignity." So I always like that because I think that it gives us something as we go through this to think about and really be a part of that quote. So the outline for today is when we're thinking about, going into communities, either with your groups or you're doing virtual tours, what to consider when taking pictures, how to approach the communities that you're working in, and about consent and how crucial consent is to this process of storytelling and to our work. So the first thing to think about when we're talking about stories is about how we want to, think about before we get there, right? The research, the culture, the rituals, and how to offending people. And I know as tour guides that you're very aware of this in terms of what you should be wearing and what you should be saying and things like this, but sometimes also just like things like what people feel about pictures and how you approach people, how open they are, what they understand about storytelling and about putting their pictures online. These are all things to think about when we're researching in terms of doing visuals and stories. And so in terms of these things to consider, wouldn't want obviously your picture taken without someone asking. And so, thinking about how you want to be treated if your picture was taken is something that you can think about in terms of how you want, how the subjects will want it as well. And of course, like for children, not to take pictures unless you get consent of an adult is crucial if possible. So here's the first video I have. And if you can't hear it, please let me know and we'll readjust.
Sorry, we can't hear any sound.
Okay, let me stop sharing my screen. Thank you for that. I will unshare my screen. Let's see, share sound. Let's see if that works. And try again. How about now? Do you hear music?
Yes, works.
Okay, great.
Kurt! What are you doing? I thought you could carry a bucket on your head.
You can't tell me that wasn't funny. Each time there's filmmakers from overseas come down to Africa, I'm the first person they call. I've got mad skills. Wait for it, and That is South Africa.
It's my first time in Africa, and as a young mother, I'm really looking forward to meeting the children. Your father, where is he?
My father left when I was 2 years old. He went to look for a job, and he never returned ever since. So I've been the man of the house. Is this your first charity appeal?
Good.
So I just like that because it throws into sharp relief a lot of these things that we think of when we think of, you know, children in Africa and what it means. And yet it's kind of like, you know, making fun of these appeals that we still see a ton in terms of this stuff. And it also makes a lot of sense for the kinds of photos and videos that we still see people presenting when they think about this. So that leads into my next point, which is about context. So we always think as, you know, the context of like what we're taking pictures, like what's actually happening versus what's kind of, you know, being presented. And, you know, as the ambassadors to where your clients are, I mean, this is all the things that you want to present. So being really careful about the context that we're really thinking about is really important. Like it just happens anywhere where we have a camera, you know, we're thinking about, you know, how also we're going to disrupt people in this context and like thinking about all these things. And I just want to show you a small example. This is a photo I took in Greece of refugees that had come over from Turkey that were trying to escape from Syria. And if you look at this photo, it's, you know, people really sad. It looks like they're having a hard time, that things are really tough. This is that without context, right? The actual context is that they were at a camp and that some of these ladies were not feeling well and that they were waiting to be seen by a doctor. So that wasn't anything that the first photo could, if you put this up, what that would mean, but the context of, you know, what was happening around them, what was really there is incredibly important. And so either if you're out by yourself or you're with a group, trying to present the whole picture in terms of what people can see and what they're going to, you know, tell as the story when they bring back. Obviously, there's only so much you can control when someone takes a picture, but you can present them with the context and show them that, you know, there's a lot there that is not maybe the, you know, one side. So it's important to see all these different things when we're going, you know, to communities all over the world. Also, obviously, something that I'm sure is top of mind for you is to think about avoiding exploitation, right? So, you know, our photos should be an act of respect, not of exploitation. So if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. And if you look at a photo and it makes you feel uncomfortable, well, that's probably there for a reason. So like a lot of times you'll see people maybe taking a picture. I'm not saying like in the context of your tours, but just taking a picture of someone who's homeless or is begging for money, and they do it kind of like very surreptitiously and they scoot away. Well, the reason is because they know that it's not something that that person would maybe want. So instead of asking and making sure that they're being shown in the way that they want to be seen, they're just taking that picture and going away. And then of course, there's also like the exploitation when we're talking about communities that may not be doing things anymore, but are doing them in the context also, or rather they're being kind of put out as show ponies for tourists. Like, for example, you know, the Padang women in Myanmar who have these neck braces, and that's obviously a very traditional thing, but now a lot of times they're just there to collect money from tourists. So, you know, just thinking about the actual story here and how, if this is true to life or not, it may or may not be, but just thinking about the context and if there's things like, you know, communities and not just like the, you know, one photo point, how can we really give our groups that context and really give them things that will make it much more of less exploitative and more about the education of that place. Same thing with endangered species or species that aren't being treated well, right? There's a whole thing about animals, and just how that is. There are always going to be places that do this, but there are also ways that we can do it better. And, where animals are treated better, where their interaction with the clients are better, like these kind of things can help promote, giving back to the elephants and stuff like this, instead of, this would with the elephants on chains used for a picture, is quite different. Also, we want to think about, obviously, stereotyping. So as culture evolves, the trick is to avoid, taking away just one stereotype, one sole way of portraying someone or a place. And it's the same thing about context, except, specifically about people. So thinking about this and always constantly evaluating it. Again, I think that this is something that I'm probably speaking to people who already very much know this, but it's always good to have it in our heads and how we can help the people that we're working with to understand how to avoid this. I just have another little video here for you as well.
To the Western world. I am an African man. 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 But do you know who we are? If you've only seen us in Hollywood movies, this is what you might think of us. Machine guns. We shoot our machine guns from trucks. We shoot our machine guns from boats. When we run out of bullets, we shoot rocket launchers. We are obsessed with violence. We hate smiling. Smiling is stupid. We are fantastic role models. We only speak in one-liners, and when we speak, we sound evil.
What did you say? Do you believe in God?
Don't lie to me! Staying calm is stupid.
Where is the diamond? Where is the diamond? What is left?
However, there is nothing more dangerous than a brave Western protagonist. We're talking to you, shirtless Matthew McConaughey.
Are you okay?
And one thing for sure, a day without war is a day not worth living.
But you don't really think of us that way, do you?
We are likable and friendly guys. And we are even on Facebook. We have more than a stereotype. Let's change the perception.
So I just love this because, again, sorry for the two, ones about African stereotypes or, about how we are treated in exploitation, but I work a lot in the African subcontinent. And I think that this is very clear because even if we're not thinking this, it's obviously all around us. These stereotypes still exist, unfortunately, and not just obviously about African men. There's lots of different people who are grouped into stereotypes. So it's our job as storytellers, as visual storytellers, to provide the better context and people understand the entire communities and what's there, and so that they can really learn and change their perspectives, even if they're not even obviously think that they are biased. We are surrounded by these things that don't help our perception, so we need to do that. And then, of course, when it comes to the photos that people take, there's the posting of what you know, where it will go, because we will all want to share our work these days, right, online, but we don't know exactly where our photo will end up. I mean, I've certainly had things go places that I was not clear that they were going to go. And depending on the photo, that can be somewhat of a problem. So, you know, when we take the photo and it leaves the confines of our camera or our phone or computer, it goes to the internet, we don't have control over it anymore. So we have to ask ourselves, like, what it's going to mean, and thinking about, you know, how it's going to either oversimplify an issue or display something out of context. And I'm not saying that it's always wrong. I'm just saying that we have to consider these things and we have to be aware of it. So it's all just about thinking about this before it becomes a problem. And just as some examples of this is from a website called Humanitarians of Tinder, where, like, if Tinder and wherever you are, dating apps, there's always people who post photos of themselves with animals, wild animals that have been tamed or drugged. And then there's always, like, people who are taking pictures of themselves with disenfranchised children or communities, because that's somehow going to make them seem, you know, more worldly. But again, like, we don't have control over people doing this, but we can give them the context in our groups of what it means to do these kind of things and what it gives to the rest of the world when we're, you know, showing people out of context or somehow, like, making ourselves into these saviors of, you know, the things that we're seeing. And then the last thing is about power dynamics. Obviously, we are probably in a position where in a lot of these places, it may not be that, you know, it's an equal power dynamic, and that's something to consider. So in order to really take that in, we really want to think about, like, deep listening, you know, not just taking a picture without being there and hearing people's stories, you know, and then thinking about if it's not, how it's not correct, if it's not the right thing, how we can step aside and not bring our ego into it when these things, because a lot of times, like, as a photographer, I know if I really want a picture, I'm going to try a lot of different ways to get it, but sometimes it may not be the right thing to do depending on the, you know, the tone, the feeling, the community. So we have to be aware of these power dynamics and how people might respond, even if it's not the way that they want to respond. A really good example, and I love this account, is called No White Saviors. And it is fantastic because it shows pictures that are problematic, but it also says what we can do to change it. So it's not just calling people out about these. It's not, like said, when we make this post, we aren't canceling anyone, despite what some may think. We want to leave space for people to learn, grow, and commit to doing better. So it's a really good account, and it's really very helpful just to kind of keep tabs on, and you get, like, a sense of ethical storytelling in real time, and just kind of, like, brings to mind the things that they seem like good pictures, but may not in retrospect not be. So that's kind of the stuff that we're thinking of when we're doing this in terms of storytelling. On a more humorous note, this is called Barbie Savior. And essentially, it's as if Barbie went to these places and took pictures of herself in these kind of situations. It's really funny. I highly recommend it. It's an older account, but it's really worthwhile looking up, and just bring some humor to this issue and some levity, but still very truthful. And we've probably all seen some of these pictures before. So it's really nice to kind of just to laugh a little bit as well, and realize, like, you know, that if Barbie's doing it, it's probably not the best idea. So that's about, you know, the first thing about the photos in the community. And then when I'm thinking about going into a community and taking pictures, the first thing that I'm doing is the preparation, right? And that's like what I was talking about before, about research, but also like, how can I be a good ally? Make sure the first thing I want to do is do no harm and help that community thrive. So, that's kind of the first things that I'm always thinking about when I'm going there is how could I talk to the people? So a lot of my work as a visual storyteller is to prepare to take the pictures, is to talk to the people who live there, is to get a sense of what is going to be working and what isn't, even in advance, and really feel like I'm going in with people who understand and can give me guidance when there's stuff that's happening. Also, obviously, safety and security, the same thing. Like I just always, my first and foremost is to say, do no harm. I want to make sure that I'm making sure that I'm not going to put anyone at risk in the community and that I'm also safe, right? So, a lot of times when there's like large groups, we have to think about that. Just on both ends, it's not just us, it's them. And so it goes both ways. We want to make sure that everyone is going to be happy with the experience of taking photos and isn't going to feel in any way that there's a problem. When like talking about interacting, making sure that when we're taking photos, like they're trusting you with their photo, their face, their story, and they may not know where it's going to end up, right? So if they don't understand, we need to understand and we need to talk to them and see if it's going to be okay. So sometimes we have to make a judgment call and may not be that everyone understands how these things are. So, also thinking about interacting by, trying to make sure you don't make promises that can't be kept. Like, this photo is going to go blah, 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 or something like that. Never like it's going to change your life or whatever, those kind of promises for photos. As a journalist standpoint, we never do that. It always, if I'm taking photos, I always say, I hope that this photo will go places and people will understand more about your work and what's happening. But I would never say that something is going to change as a result. And, want to make sure, again, we represent people accurately, but that's also about asking them how they want to be portrayed and making them not a subject of the photos, but a participant, so that they feel like they have agency and they are empowered to say no, and all these other things, which is also we'll get to with consent. So, but in terms of the subject's agency, like the person is there, they have power too. So, thinking about this and really want them to be as, as involved as anyone, because, also like they could highlight, if they appreciate the way that they are being portrayed, then they will also share it. And that might be in a community that you haven't even explored in terms of getting more publicity or getting more awareness or whatever your group is trying to do through tourism, this kind of thing that might be really helpful. So like, as this is, I would say I took this photo in Myanmar. And I think it's like a woman who's working and she's also taking care of her child. And it's really, to me, empowering because she's doing all these things and it seems like she's living a good life. So I wanted to give those kinds of photos and making sure that they're doing that. This is a photo that was taken in Rwanda, I believe. And I didn't take this photo. It was a colleague of mine who was working for my agency. And it's about women who work together to help, stop domestic violence in their community. And you can notice that they're kind of looking down at the camera, which gives them a kind of authoritative look, right? Because if you take a picture from above, it makes someone look more vulnerable. But if you take a picture from below, then it makes them look more powerful. So it's just all these kind of like little tips about, visuals and how people are portrayed and thinking about these things when we're with groups or taking photos or video. By comparison, this photo, I think, doesn't do anything for this woman. It kind of just has it makes like the background with the tin that's, you know, kind of rusted. It doesn't give her any agency. It doesn't empower her. It's just kind of like a fly by night photo, you know, taken quickly, and visually it doesn't help anything, and it doesn't give her story. So just thinking about these things in terms of that are really important. And also, you know, this is a photo by Steve McCurry, who's a National Geographic photographer, except that he's had a lot of issues because in recent years it's come to light that he's staged a lot of photos. And this photo doesn't have anything particularly wrong in that, you know, nothing looks bad, but just the fact that it's not true and that it's been staged, there's no, those suitcases are completely empty. And this woman is the wife of a friend of the photographer, asked to come to the train station to take this picture. And so it doesn't, if things like that are there and they're not authentic, like our last storyteller was incredibly authentic, then it becomes a problem in terms of us showing true life and being believed as well. So thinking about this stuff and making sure we're really trying to be authentic and true and not staging photos and not asking people to do things that they're not actually doing is really important. And then just keep checking. It's not enough to just check once. Things change, people change, dynamics change. So if you have a group, you know, checking to see how people in the community feel about it afterwards, if anything was a problem, if they like something, you know, to see how they are doing with it. So make sure that they're constantly in a conversation with you, because that means that they feel like they're not just being taken advantage of with their photos or the video, but that there's something that they can give and that you can hear when there's stuff that they think may be better or that they need to change or they don't like. So this is also really important, is to just constantly check in with the communities if you're doing multiple places, and even if not, just to make sure that afterwards for the next people that might come. The final thing I want to talk about is consent. So consent is like an interesting issue because, you know, how do you feel if a stranger took your picture and didn't ask? Obviously, it's always important to know what are the rules and laws of a place and like what is culturally acceptable. But if it's possible to always ask permission, you know, people aren't tourist attractions, and we want to make it enriching for them as it is for the people who are on the tour. So if it's possible to ask permission, we always should. And I know that isn't always possible, so I'll go get to that in a second, but I just want to give you an example of something else. So probably a lot of you are familiar with this photo. It's a very famous photo taken by Steve McCurry, the same National Geographic photographer. And it's known as the Afghan Girl. And she didn't have a name for a very long time. Her name is Sharbat Gula. And when people look at this photo, they think, oh, well, this is the plight of Afghani girls and women. Look how scared she is, how much intensity she is about her life. This is what's always been talked about. Except the actual story here is that when Steve McCurry took this photo, he didn't get consent from anyone, her mother or father, or you know, she was a minor, so anyone who could give consent for her. And she was in class. They took her out of class and just stood her against a green wall and took this picture. Now, if you've never seen a tall white man before and he comes to take your picture and pulls you out of class, wouldn't you be terrified too? That's a look of being terrified by someone who's taking the picture, not terrified about her life. So thinking about these and the context behind pictures is also really important. We want to be genuine, we want to be authentic, and we want to make sure that people involved in the pictures are participants. They are able to give their voice. This girl, much later on, said that this derailed her life, that it had a lot of problems. She didn't know for a very long time that this was her There were a lot of issues that came up later when people did find out that it was her. So just thinking about this stuff, is what we want to consider. And then just thinking about respecting boundaries, right? Like what's okay. Each culture has a different where you can stand with people. Taking a photo and walking on, like, don't invade people's spaces and try to ask permission. But sometimes it's not possible, obviously, to take pictures exactly at that moment, especially if it's a street scene and people are moving away from you. It may not be possible. I mean, if you're not taking a specific person and it's just a street scene, it probably isn't possible to ask permission for everyone. And that's fine, because like street scenes typically are, normal and people are just doing things. And so it's not focused on one individual person. But if you're taking a photo of a person, and specifically if you're taking a picture of a child, you always want to get permission, even if it's after the fact. So like, for example, this photo is like a beautiful photo of a woman doing some needlework. If I went up to her at that moment and I asked her to take the photo, I would disturb the photo, right? But you could go afterwards, after you've taken that photo, and go up and say, is it okay? I just took this photo, and show it to her and really get an interaction. Really, you can have a conversation. People, that they feel like, oh, wow, that's a great photo, or maybe they didn't, and then they're upset and you can delete it. And so you can, do all these things and think about it, even if it's after the fact. And then obviously, like, this is what we don't want, is like a lot of people crowding around and, kind of thinking like how, like, just invading community and not giving the respect or space to, the people there. So really just trying to be respectful when we're taking photos, respectful when we're in someone's community, all these things that I know are top in mind for you. But from a visual perspective, I just wanted to give you that kind of added things to set in your mind and to help people who you're working with. The final thing I'm going to leave you with is Dignified Storytelling is a community, and it's calling upon the global community to join hands and tackle irresponsible storytelling. So you can commit to the Dignified Storytelling Pledge, an effort to instill understanding and practice of storytelling that brings us together and reminds us for our shared humanity. And this is their 10 principles. Thinking about, and these could almost be something that you keep with you, just like print it out and keep with you. It's not my story, right? So it's someone else's story. I do no harm. We are all multidimensional, right? Context. Consent is more than paperwork. So it's, even if you get a piece of paper, it's more than that, because people don't always know what they're signing. I am biased. Repeat, I am biased. Like, we're always kind of finding other things that we didn't think of as our internal bias. So we're always have to be evaluating that and be open to, considering what we had been doing wrong in the past. I do my homework. So we're doing our research and talking to the communities. I am empathetic. So listening and really understanding, so we get the whole picture. I protect others' data like it's my own. So, in the case that you're taking pictures for me of like vulnerable communities, I want to make sure that I don't show anything that's going to be problematic for these communities. And like I said, about security for them, safety for them, that's the same kind of thing. Truth over headlines, right? So it's very easy to make headlines when things aren't true because we can make them up. But truth is what is important in terms of our own authenticity and people believing us and wanting to work with us again in the future. And then 10, a story can change the world, which is so true. If we have an authentic, amazing story told through visuals, through all these different types, we can change the world little by little. That is what I'm in it for. And I think that because you are reaching such a large group of people because everyone wants to travel, everyone wants to take tours, everyone wants to see things that aren't, that are different than them and to explore. You have the ability through your work and the people who you lead to really tell stories that they can take back and multiply and be empathetic and educate and really be able to change their community and the larger world. So you can go to dignifiedstorytelling.com. They also have a handbook, and you can see the pledge and the principles. So that is my presentation. You can find me on my website or my email, Instagram, Twitter. And if you would like, both on LinkedIn and on Facebook, I have a master visual storytelling group where people post things that they need kind of ideas or questions where they would like any sort of answers with this stuff. And so if you want to join and you have any questions that you want to add, questions about ethics or questions about visuals, always feel free to join and I will happily accept your request. Okay, so that's it. And I'm going to try to stop sharing and leave some room for questions. I think someone's on mute. Is there a mute?
I'm not tall enough. So do I need to use both microphones now? No, one is okay. So is it okay like this? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm not as tall as Alushka, so I needed to adjust the microphone. Thank you very much. Tara, this was such an important topic, I think, especially in our generation today, where more and more tourist guides especially use all those platforms where especially pictures, visual storytelling is important. Thank you for having taken us through so many things to think about.
Pleasure.
And this actually is something we would need to consider. I know that especially with Instagram and so on, it gets more, well, let's say tempting to just put a picture. And as you said, maybe it's not a complete picture, but we as interpreters of heritage and nature, we should also be responsible to, talk about the complete picture and to lower prejudices and barriers, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got some questions, and of course we've got some time left as well. That's why I would like to jump into that. But there's one thing I wanted to just catch, which you mentioned in the very last section of your presentation, which is dignified storytelling. Thank you very much for mentioning that again. I hope most of our members have seen that in the newsletter, because the WFTGA has already taken the pledge, and all of you are invited to do it individually as well. I've done that as well last week. So yes, please go on the website, have a look at the different requirements, let's say, or the pledges, as Tara has pointed out. So maybe we're starting with one question, which is a bit more private. It comes from Hungary, from Budapest, to be correct. And the question was, we saw a picture of Budapest in your presentation, and which kind of experience did you have there, and when were you there?
I was there a number of years ago. That's actually not my photo, but I remembered it being lovely. And so I used it. I was only there for 3 days for business meetings. Unfortunately, I've always wanted to go back. It's on my list. I live in Istanbul, so it's not super far, but of course the pandemic, everything's been delayed. So I hope to get back soon.
I see. So our Hungarian colleagues, you have heard that. She'll come back. She'll come back soon. You have maybe preempted some of the questions already a bit in the section on posting, where you mentioned different platforms. And I've mentioned it with Instagram before. If there's only one advice you would give us as tourist guides using, let's say, Instagram, as it's probably the most popular platform, what would it be? So how
In terms
can we
of
make it more ethical?
More ethical, and I would say always try to get people's names and their stories. Like if you were taking a photo of a street scene, like I said, it's probably a lot of people and you're not going to get everyone's name. But if one person is obviously your focus and you've got a lovely photo of them, spend some time and talk to them, get their story, understand them, and use that in the caption, because it leaves a lot in terms of giving not just a faceless person in a faceless community, but it really gives them their voice. And, you know, talk to them about what you would like to do. Is it okay to post this? And, you know, show them what you posted before, or show them other photos in your camera so they get a sense of who you are. People are it's amazing how people just say yes to these things and are so kind, and a lot of times to do this, and don't really know very much about what that means. So try to, you know, give back, and then also pay it forward, show their names, and something that honors them, like not just something like, oh, isn't this horrible that so many, I mean, things are true, you want to say true things, but everyone has you know, passions and hopes and dreams for the future. So, you know, giving them that and having it be that genuine is very important.
Yeah, that's a very good point, I think. And you've mentioned, of course, consent goes hand in hand with that. Do you think it's enough to have an oral consent, or do we, as like wannabe storytellers, need a written consent from every person we're taking pictures of?
I don't think you need written consent, because that would be too burdensome. And also people may not understand the written consent. If you've looked at a lot of consent forms, they're very legalese, awkward, and they also seem really scary. I think that if you're planning on using it for advertising purposes, or for something that's not the context that it is, if you're just planning on posting it for your personal use, then, you know, a verbal consent, also something that's not very controversial. Like if it's going to harm someone, or it might potentially be a problem, then you definitely want to explain fully, verbally and written. But if it's not, then usually, you know, verbal consent is enough.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Probably that is also linked to the, let's say, put the complete picture, and yeah, not putting a picture as something which is only staged, as you have shown one of the pictures in your presentation.
Yeah, exactly. Giving context, showing the real life, the authentic things. That's really what's important.
And probably one of the most important parts is what you mentioned, do no harm, which is also in the dignified storytelling.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's one special thing we have, like as tourist guides, have come up with during the last 2 years as being in pandemic, which is online guided tours or virtual tours, stream tours, however you want to call them. How do you think we can make them more ethical? Because, you know, if it's like a live streaming, we've got the camera or the gimbal, and we go through the streets, and if there are children, for example.
Right.
And we cannot ask everyone.
Right.
Do you have any recommendation on that?
My recommendation would be, first, like what I do is to talk to the local elders of the communities that you're working in, so they're aware, and if they have any concerns about kids being, you know, just running through whatever, they can tell you. And then if they say, well, don't do it right after school because there'll be a lot more kids or something, they can give you times and things that might be really helpful. So you get the consent of them, and then maybe there's someone that they can suggest that would go with you as the guide, so that people understand what you're doing, because they might also be upset if you're just doing that and kind of like, keeping those things. So always just having someone else, if you're not a part of that community typically, that can help and help you as you're walking, because you're going to be walking and talking. So you're not going to be able to talk to people as much, but you don't want to ignore those people either, right? Because they're curious and they deserve to know what's going on. So if you have someone else that's with you that can, I always look for local journalists, because I feel like those people know very much what's going on in the communities. They're talking to people, they live there, they are known. So people trust them, that if you're working with them, that they are a trusted source. So looking for local journalists is always, to me, a really helpful thing. And so you can just go and then they can stop and talk to people. And then after the tour, go back and, retrace your steps and just have more conversations with people, because even if you're never going to do that again, someone else might. And you don't want to leave people thinking that, we're just kind of like a side, attraction, people walking through the streets, this kind of thing. And then, see if there's ways you can give back, like that there's things like you can tell people where online to buy stuff that might be in a local shop, or, how these things, so that people are getting things from that interaction as well. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
That's very good thoughts. I was just about to mention the interaction, which you also had in your presentation, but you mentioned it in the very last sentence of yours. So yeah, interacting is very important, and especially to, how to say that? I'm not a native speaker. Sometimes I'm missing words. So
okay.
And to know, to not be intrusive in the community or wherever you are. And as you said, which is extremely interesting, I think, that we also have to think about others who might be there. So it's not just us in that moment, and we can do whatever we want, and there's nothing behind us and nothing after us. But of course, interacting with wherever we are also paves the way for others, maybe to have a better interaction with the residents, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you. And just one moment, coming back to the Instagram part. Of course, we would like to share the story itself and the story about the people and what they have in their background. Do you think people really read on Instagram? For example, Instagram?
I've been surprised how it's, I think it's always important to start with something strong, because people, there's a lot, right? So Instagram will show you the first 3 lines. So if you start with a nice quote or something about your interaction that's very heartfelt, people will read more. I find myself reading a lot more on Instagram now if it's a nice story. So I think that it's incredibly valuable to have if people want it, but I also think you need to start strong. So our text is as important in the visual, right? Like for a lot of things, but it's like, it's the first lines, it's the first photo. Whatever your first photo is, even if it's like a carousel, that's the one people are going to see. What are the first 3 lines? That's what people are going to see. So really think about how you can bring an interesting moment or a nice quote that's heartfelt to the top to help that. And then I really think that people will click to read more.
Very good point. Starting strong. Thank you very much. I think that's something we can all take with us. And we'll now move to our last question, and then we can move on to the last speaker. The last question is for you personally. What is valuable to you, and why do you take pictures?
That's a lovely question. Thank you. So I started because I really cared about women's issues, and breaking stereotypes for women all over the world was really important to me. And especially with women's reproductive health. And so I really wanted to kind of elevate the stories, not just about the things that were wrong, although it's very important to show that stuff too, but the people who were changing their own communities. And so photos just came as the way that I could do it. And I actually studied engineering in college, so I wasn't a photography major. But when I graduated, I realized that what I really cared about was visually showing people. And then, so I'm originally from New York City, but I now live in Istanbul because I've been working professionally in the region for over 15 years. And I care passionately about people's stories being told well, in whatever way that is, and really then engendering more compassion and education throughout the world. Because in America, there are some people that understand. There's a lot of people that don't understand about the rest of the world. So I came from that context of really wanting people to understand more. And I think that's similar in so many other places. You know, you don't see the whole picture, you only see one thing. And so I really try to give a full picture, literally and figuratively, of like what we see. So that's why I do what I do and why I'm passionate about it.
Great. Even from the way you're presenting it, we can feel your passion. So thank you very much, Tara.
Thank you. This was a pleasure. Thank you guys very much.
Tara, I know that you'll be with us again on Thursday. So if any questions more arise on Thursday for the professional day, Tara will be with us again to elaborate a bit more on this.
And I'll also show some of my own work and things like that a little bit more. So if there aren't any other questions, I can also do that. So thanks again. I'll see you Thursday.
See you on Thursday. Bye-bye. All right, coming up to our next speaker, Marco Valente from ICCIRA. You all have read the program, I guess. He is going to give us a case study on archaeology and tourism. So to have the cultural and environmental enhancement of sites of heritage interest. And there he'll have two places in Alentejo and Morocco. And Marco is the historical archaeologist and the vice chairman of the board of directors of ICCIRA. And we welcome you very warmly here today, Marco. Thank you very much for being with us. And I'll hand over.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, this wonderful opportunity. I had some issues with my PowerPoint, so I will be talking about two journeys. So the first journey I'll be talking about, they're intertwined, is regarding ICCIRA. What is ICCIRA? So the International Cultural and Creative Industries Regulatory Authority is a non-profit, multi-selective and interactive think tank, research observatory, legislative and policy drafting, and legal advisory organization, currently relocating to Brussels in Belgium. ICCIRA was founded by Panayotis Neufeld with the assistance of co-founder Christos Lawrence Neufeld-Boris in March 2015. In the third UNESCO World Forum on Culture and Cultural Industries, Culture, Creativity and Sustainable Development, held in October 2014, Panayotis Neufeld expressed his concerns regarding the lack of international, legal, and regulatory consistency in the global cultural and creative industries. ICCIRA is working in helping to solve these concerns. Also regarding data protection and handling issues, quoting Panayotis Neufeld, data results represent the current trends not necessarily related to future needs, as dependencies changes and variable factors may dictate other approaches in terms of future expected conditions. Often policies are implemented when not needed anymore. There is a need for radical changes. I am not altogether sure if by reconceptualizing the creative and cultural industry's developmental ideas or evolution factors, taking into consideration current changes happening due to the pandemic or the international economic crisis, for instance, may lead to solving the long-standing problems that the performing arts or festivals and cultural actors locally and internationally have always faced. If this is the end of an era as we know it, having not defined and solved the old era mess, what we carry along as a burden at the dawning of this new era could be old habits of a meaningless past. ICCIRA, through a network of worldwide ambassadors, is able to listen locally to better acting globally. Also to contribute to the growth and development and to pave way for the future of international arts, culture, creative industries, and entertainment legislation and regulatory framework, ICCIRA needs to introduce a series of state-of-the-art technological tools. Neufeld's proposal brings innovative solution to the international legislature, focusing on the arts, cultural, creative, and entertainment industries, legal and regulatory framework, and environment with the use of artificial intelligence in combination to blockchain technology. I recommend on our viewers to follow up ICCIRA's work and joining in this journey too. So now I will be discussing a little bit about a dream. This started as a dream. There's an African saying that goes by, one dream dreamed alone is but a dream. One dream dreamed together is reality beginning. So for this archaeology and tourism case study on cultural and environmental enhancement of sites of heritage interest in Portugal and Morocco, I was discussing it with Panayotis and the other members of ICCIRA because since a while ago, since several years, lots of sites in Alentejo, that's where I've been working since mostly 2007, are being destroyed, and no one seemed to care about these sites. So I saw that there was an opportunity in Castro Verde with some sites like a settlement of 17-acre old copper castle that was never duly excavated. No one used geophysics. So now we are having this opportunity to do so on the 17-acre settlement, 2 shrines and 8 Roman forts. So these will be basically the sites where we will be developing the project. Panayotis and the other members of ICCIRA saw it as a possible case study that could be replicated worldwide, because some of the questions that we are facing here and the destruction that we are dealing here in Alentejo happened worldwide, on a worldwide basis. So on this early stage, we are still collecting images and data. We are doing some surveys on the field to see what there is and doing some filming on the sites. We had the opportunity to have some initial filmings with Dr. Manuel Maya, and Dr. Manuel Maya passed away last year. He was an archaeologist that did some initial surveys in the 1970s in some of these sites, but for most of them, they were never excavated. So there's lots of opportunities there. There are thousands of objects there with small stories just waiting to be told, and the communities around them to be raised awareness on the importance of those sites, of those objects from their ancestors. So we started doing the filming, and with a documentary production company, Fazemos Filmes, we are starting to film the elderly persons and all the inhabitants of the nearby locations of these sites. So actually we are filming, asking the consent of the legends, the prayers, the folks medicine, the song. The idea is to taking these films and selecting some to have on social media platforms, and creating a site, also blog and everything connected to it, and giving the opportunity of these people telling their stories on their language, Portuguese, but with subtitles in English or other language, so that anyone else in the world can also be acquainted with these stories. So there will always be the academic part of it. My PhD, other students that will work on their degrees, their masters and their PhDs too. But we are also very, our main concern is mostly directed to the communities, because we see that there's a lot to be done still with the communities to raise this awareness. We're joining in with more partners to the project. For instance, with ADPM, which is the Association for the Protection of Myrtle's Natural and Cultural Heritage. We've been gathering with them because they have a 200-acre property, that they wish it to enter the ecosystem restoration camps, which is an organization that is restoring ecosystems worldwide. So I was speaking that we could do the ecosystem restoration camp there, create a school there, and also with the results from the excavations that we will be holding on the Roman forts, on the settlement, of the fauna and the flora, mostly the flora that we gather there, maybe we could do some archaeological experimental and trying to see that in Roman eras or Iron Age, people were using their resources probably in the most respectful way for the environment. And even recently, with the local communities, that they are now in their 60s and their 70s. They have lots of legends, they have lots of stories. They know how to work on the field. They know how to gather the plants from the field, how to prepare things from the field. And this knowledge is being virtually, and in reality, is being lost because there's a need to film these people, to gather their knowledge, and to make them also believe in themselves. Because sometimes when we're gathering stories, sometimes it's, oh, we are elderly, no one cares to listen to us anymore. We're just waiting here to die. And then I see that I have this feeling that I need to make them see that their knowledge is fruitful, their knowledge is needed for the next generations, because we've broken a little bit the connection between generations. There is a gap nowadays that this world is putting us through, because parents usually leave their children at school, the parents go to work, and then the elderly are kept in elderly homes. So the connection is broken in sometimes. So what we're trying to do here as well is trying to bring this connection back again, and to make people feel that their knowledge matters, for instance. Other things that we have been doing regards, for instance, with the WFTGA, we expect them to train and certify tourist guides for that will be needed for the cultural routes that will be created. For instance, with ICCIRA Heritage Revitalization Company, we're starting to work on creating routes regarding the Iron Age, Roman and medieval eras here in Alentejo, but also with the help of Qadi Ayad University from Marrakesh in Morocco. They were very excited in joining in and bringing in also their routes that they've already created, the green route, the blue route, and also the forts that they have and that they wanted to better and fully gather help in making them worldwide and making their stories also come forward. So the knowledge of their researchers will be most important in helping us also to create this, not a single project, but like a communicating vessels of projects that this expects to be. So we expect to create international cultural routes too. Also from González Carrillo Studio, from Olivenza, for my friends there in Olivenza. They are doing the brand development of Ataejin. They're helping us creating the site and also helping us on the social media pages that will be created, blogs, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. So we're still working on that, collecting the images, collecting the films. So hopefully in the near future, we will start presenting a small documentary. The idea is to present a small documentary of the project and then go forward from there. Also from the past preservers in the UK, we wish to develop programs where families and groups or individuals can go to the sites and be like archaeologists for a day. Let's for instance, imagine that there's a family that wishes to go to do something different, and they see in a site, well, we can be archaeologists for a day in Portugal and help to excavate a Roman fort there. And then they can come and also when they come, they visit other places, so they stay, the intention will be to create more jobs and helping for the tourist guides and other cultural and creative industries actors to better understand what are the strengths of this project, what are the needs of this project. So actually we're counting on everyone to help to the communicating vessel of projects to move forward. So so far we're also gathering support from the University of Évora, where I'm conducting the PhD on these sites. So, but the intention is to help other students on doing their degrees, masters and PhD theses, and also creating a network of universities beside the University of Évora and Cadi Ayad University. We also have the interest of Viperian University in Romania, hopefully in the near future with talks with the Banaras Hindu University in Varanasi in India. So this is a dream coming true little by little and step by step. So that's why I was saying at first that I came here to talk to you about two journeys, and one journey that is making one of these dreams possible. So we will try and use geophysics and study the ceramics, the stones, the fauna, the flora. Actually, what we will be doing is to gather all the things that we can to make this project a success. So we're counting on everyone, and we're counting on the WFTGA too. And I thank you all for listening for this little bit about these two journeys and two dreams that are just starting.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Barbara. On behalf of all of us here in the room, and of course, on behalf of everyone online.
I'm not listening very well. You'll need that mic again.
Why is it me? Do you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, then I talk a bit lower, maybe. Okay,
fine.
First of all, I'm really sorry to all of our Portuguese-speaking colleagues. I know I mispronounced Alentejo because being here in Spain, I said Alentejo, no? So sorry for that, Alentejo. But thank you very much for these interesting stories. And of course, we as tourist guides, we are also part of the solution, as you've mentioned. So we also need to make sure that our sites are protected. But what you've highlighted as well in your presentation, what I found very interesting and very important was that it's not only sites like buildings or natural sites which get lost, but also knowledge. And this is very difficult to protect if there's no one to take over the knowledge from the elders. So I really much hope that we will get there somehow, and we can be of help as well as tourist guides for that. I just have a quick look into the chat to see, because I know that there's a question. Marco, what is the role ICCIRA wants us guides to take in the project? Well, that quite fits with what I've just said. You mentioned, I think, that you are also training tourist guides. So what kind of training is that? And yeah, what do you expect of all of us?
Well, actually, we're not start the training yet, but we're still working on the routes. So that there still be that work to be done, that preliminary work. And after we have the routes, what we expect from WFTGA will be to certify our tourist guides also as international, because there's an issue, for instance, regarding the other cultural actors. For instance, I recall a matter in England with a musician that wished to go to other parts of Europe to do his performing, and he was finding it difficult to go there because there is no credential, there is no visa for an artist from England, for instance, to be doing his works somewhere else. So I think that ICCIRA can help in having, in fighting for gaining that visa. And also we could, by certifying these tourist guides, we could help them to be able to do their work not only here, but somewhere else where they might find more adequate. Of course, we want to fix people here in Alentejo, because Alentejo was one of the poorest regions in Europe still, and we're losing inhabitants with in the latest years, and we need to make young people have future. So the future may pass through this project that we are fighting for. So let's hopefully expect that future for everyone comes from this project too.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. So I think we will have to discuss this also within the WFTGA. As you might know, that like a tourist guide, the definition is, of course, that we are locally specialized and we are not working somewhere else. So for artists, there might be a different possibility. We will need to talk about that, and this will be an interesting discussion, I think. I'm trying to figure out whether there are other questions, because we've got different channels. I hope you bear with me. I don't see any open questions in the chat nor in the Q&A session, but we've got one in the room, as I see. So Viola, would you like to pose your questions? We're just handing over the microphone.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Just a test that everybody can hear me. Thank you very much, Marco, as well, for your inspiring talk and picking up on the issue of creative profession, finding it difficult to find employment. I mean, we absolutely agree with that, and we feel it as well as tourist guides. And to highlight that, as Sarah said, so we tourist guides, the profession, it's an area-specific qualification. You talked about the knowledge of the elders. And so we tourist guides are actually, if you want, we are the knowledge of a particular region, of a particular area. We are also the interpreters of the heritage, the culture and the natural heritage of that area. And therefore, kind of by definition, our profession is always area specific, because I think my head would burst if I had the knowledge and the heritage of the whole world in me. So coming back to helping young professionals to get into the tourist guide profession, I think all of our colleagues would suggest contact your local tourist guide association and start there. And then, through your local tourist guide association, come into the WFTGA family and, attend those events, and we can learn from each other. So it's more of an intervention rather than a kind of answer, rather than a question. But I just wanted to say to everybody, I find it so inspiring to be here together in a room, either in person or online, to talk about those issues, to talk about what we have in common, and also to find solution of how to go into the future and continue working in the creative professions we love.
Thank you, Viola. Yeah, Marco, would you like to add anything to that? Or are you happy with our will to work together?
I'm very happy with your will to work together and all the advices you can give as well. And of course, I will contact the local tourist associations, of course. We will need them all. Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for being with us today and giving us these examples of Alentejo. Well, I don't see anyone else coming up with a question, but of course the internet page, the website of ICCIRA is available. You can just Google for that. Otherwise it's ICCIRA.org, if I remember correctly. And then I would like to thank you again, Marco, and wish you a pleasant day. And we will go over to the closure of our president.
Thank you very much. All the very best.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for assisting with those Q&As. Before we go on to our closures and we close the session with the last little preview of what's going on site, I just think that what Marco has mentioned has highlighted the importance of the sites and the roles that we as tourist guides play in protecting these sites. We are, at the end of the day, also protectors of heritage and culture and our sites. And I'd just like to give the floor 5 minutes to our colleague from Greece, Yanis. There is a site in Greece at the moment, which is obviously an employer indirectly of tourist guides. It's used to do a lot of education in Greece. And Yanis is going to make us a little bit aware of what happens, unfortunately, when governments get involved or don't get involved and our heritage and legacy is affected. So with that, Yanis, would you like to come up and just introduce to us and tell us more about the Saloniki metro station? And then following just 5 minutes from Yanis, we will do our closure. And then don't forget this afternoon, we have our bidding countries. So Yanis.
Hello, everybody, both live and online. My name is Yanis Kurtoglu. I come from Greece. I'm a licensed tourist guide in English and Bulgarian. And thanks a lot for the time given to us. I would like to share my personal experience in connection with what we've heard earlier about the sites and the protection of different sites. In my hometown, where I live and work also in Thessaloniki, northern Greece, we have an astonishing number of archaeological sites and also ones that were discovered during the excavations for the construction of the metro underground of Thessaloniki. One of which has impressive of size dimensions. We're talking about a 1,500 square meters intact archaeological site of excellent condition. Suddenly back in 2019, the Greek government, the Greek state decided to change the previous decision, which was preserve the site intact and construct the metro station. And the new point of view, the new decision of the Greek government was dismantle the entire site. We're talking about a 4th century AD archaeological site, the heart of Thessaloniki of the Byzantine times, late Roman times and Byzantine times, and dismantle that, take everything away and put back again only a small percentage of that. And that gave us the opportunity to start as citizens of the city, a campaign to inform the people. On the picture shown to you, I think you can all see that. Thank you very much, Sebastian. What you can see is the guided tours that we designed. That was my initiative. I came up with the idea that there would be no better tool to inform the masses than organize guided tours in the city about this certain subject. And the guided tours were called Thessaloniki Subterra, the Subterra Polis. It is a reference to the Roman time Thessaloniki. That is the reason why we're using also a Latin, the Latin title with a Greek word. And what you can see right here is, one of the guided tours that we've taken between October 2019 and March 2020, when the pandemic just burst out and we had to postpone every single live action. So what we did was to organize guided tours between October 2019 and March 2020. The guided tours attracted 4,500 people, all of them participating in free guided tours, like the ones that you saw, in an effort to bring social awareness to the local society. One that also brought another event, and this is right here, is a banner of a speech that me, along with archaeologists, we held in the local university, the biggest one in Greece, in front of students of the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. And by doing so, we also managed to concentrate 3,000 people on a mass demonstration back in December 2019 in order to shout and demonstrate for the protection of the monument itself. That was a big struggle. We had, and we still have, of course, the support of the entire scientific community all over the world, Byzantinologists and archaeologists and experts. They have sent their letters to the Greek Prime Minister, the Minister of Culture, and also the President of Greece, in order to show their support in the fight and struggle that we give in order to protect this certain monument that you can see on the screen at the moment. Once again, we're talking about a huge archaeological site. It's only a small part of the main Decumanus Maximus of Thessaloniki, called also Via Regia, built in the 4th century, late Roman times, early Christian times. One that it has been also described in the many different historic sources about Thessaloniki's history. And of course, more problems will be caused by dismantling this archaeological site. That, unfortunately, right now as we're speaking, the process of dismantling it is taking place, unfortunately. More antiquities come to the surface and bringing more problems to the completion of the metro station in Thessaloniki. So the guided tours proved that they represent an excellent tool in bringing social awareness to the local societies, meaning that they can make a change, profound change in the local societies in many different aspects and ways. Thank you very much for the time.
So thank you very much for that insight and for sharing your plight with us. I'm sure there are many other tourist guides out there with possibly a very similar situation they faced in the past, and perhaps will give you some insight into moving forward. So very brief closing. So today we saw 84 countries join our sessions. We had Marco, Christo and Tara joining us, and Tara will join us again on Thursday for the professional day. There was some really thought-provoking insights and experiences shared with us. So I hope that there was some takeaway value that you have learned today. A reminder later to join us for our 2024 bidding countries. And with that, I will hand over to Sebastian, who will do our closeout for this session for this morning. Sebastian.
Yeah, thank you, Alushka. Oh, that was a wonderful morning.
A very busy morning and a busier one on Thursday.
A busier one on Thursday.
We have 10 speakers on Thursday.
Oh, that's amazing. 10 speakers on Thursday. And Tara is joining us again?
Exactly.
Wow. And we have a lot of interesting speakers. Check it on the website. You find really everything on our website, on our convention website. Once again, convention.wftga.org. So, and you said I should bring now the whole tourist guide group here to the lunch.
Of course.
Of course. So,
lunch.
yeah, so everybody in the room, you're allowed to follow me to the lunch. And that's exactly what we want to do with you, my dear colleagues in the World Wide Web. What we want to do is we want to have this interactive experience, and we try it exactly now with the lunch. Yeah, you're allowed to stand up and follow us. Not, oh, you need them in the room 5 more minutes. So we are allowed to go to lunch. They have to work 5 more minutes, but I can go out and check how the bidders are. So let me check how the bidders are doing, if they're still sitting there or if they morning we had here together. So let's check first. No, this is Japan. But Japan is still here for guests to come. Yeah. Oh, what do we now offer our delegates?
Everything such as these, all these, like the giveaways, not only for the giveaway. Well, if you come over to Japan, the tradition, the cuisine, and I would again say ultra-modern infrastructure that you can expect in Japan.
You see, they give us a lot of information, not really sweet gifts. But that doesn't matter. For all delegates watching now online, you have, and perhaps it's interesting for everybody, we have a website, convention.wftga.org, and on this website you can log in, click on login. Normally you should receive the login data. If not, just enter your email address with this email address you have registered, click on forget password, then you get a new password, then you can log in, and then you see all the recordings and all the meetings where you have access to those. So we have a trainers meeting, a delegates meeting, which you can join, and you have the professional day. So this time we're not sending out the Zoom links to everybody. This time you have to log in on our website and check in the internal area all the things. So are we ready for Italy again? Yeah, yesterday I told the ladies they should dress the same like Japan, because when we look over to Japan, they are dressed in the local traditional costumes. So we have to ask the ladies from Italy where their local traditional Sicily costumes are. Here we go! Oh my gosh, we have this here and another one.
It's a very old tradition which is still maintained in Syracuse, the beautiful puppet theater.
Yeah, the puppet theater. So yeah, amazing. And how will you be dressed when we perhaps meet in Sicily again?
Oh, in a very casual way. We are very casual and friendly. Come on.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So, and now let's continue. Now, the last time they had been the second. Now they are the third. This is Turkey, and you're still there. Great. How are you doing?
Fine, very fine.
And what do you offer our delegates? How do you want to convince them? Why should we vote for Turkey?
We prepared some tours only for guides and understand. We will get into the details of all Istanbul, around Marmara and deep Anatolia. When they read our itineraries, they will want.
Yeah, that's what I want to say at the beginning. Delegates, log in, check the internal area for delegates. There you find all the pitch videos. There you will find everything. Discuss it with your members. Who should they vote for? Yeah, that's exactly what what the job is.
They can see all the details.
Yeah,
WFTGA2024.org.
Yeah, you have another website, not only our internal. They have also made on background. Wow. And now the last. Where are the traditional costumes of Malaysia?
Here you are.
So, why should we vote for Malaysia? Once again, speak to the whole internet. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, everywhere.
because we have a free complimentary tour to all delegates 3 days tonight to watch this guy here in the wild.
This guide in the wild. Ladies and gentlemen, that was it from our educational day, from our welcome session. I have to go now upstairs where the lunch will be served, and I can tell you, this hotel is really amazing. It is so sad that you can't be here. Yesterday we had a welcome cocktail dinner. They brought us sausages in bread, so many different tapas. It was so amazing. So definitely the next time, 2024, we meet again, all again. But for today, we all meet again after the lunch break, 3:15 Madrid time. We meet again, and then we see this amazing presentation. Each of them will have 15 minutes on the stage, and they are a little bit nervous. They're training the speak. So 3:15 again here on Zoom. Oh no, you can't join on Zoom this time, 3:15. You only can watch us on Facebook, WFTGA Facebook website, on the WFTGA YouTube stream, or on our website. So see you later. Bye bye.